Scariest asylum had been abandoned for decades, its dark corridors filled with dust and forgotten memories. But when the city decided to demolish it, they sent in a team of contractors to ensure it was safe. Among them was Jack, a seasoned worker, skeptical of the ghost stories circulating about the old asylum. As Jack walked through the decaying halls, he heard whispers echoing through the walls, faint, indistinguishable murmurs. At first, he thought it was just the wind, but the sounds grew louder, forming words, phrases. They were cries for help, pleas for release, voices filled with pain. Determined to uncover the source, Jack ventured deeper into the asylum, descending into the basement where the most disturbed patients were once kept. The air grew thick, and the temperature dropped as he approached the old cells. The voices were louder now, almost screaming in his ears. Panicking, Jack fumbled for his flashlight, but when he turned it on, the beam illuminated the figure of a woman standing in the corner. Her eyes were hollow, her face twisted in agony. She opened her mouth, but instead of a scream, a torrent of whispers flooded the room. Jack's mind broke as the whispers consumed him, forcing him to relive the horrors endured by the asylum as patients. The next day, the demolition team found him, curled up in the corner of the cell, muttering incoherently. No one could explain how the door had locked, nor the strange marks carved into the walls. Scariest asylum was demolished the following week, but locals say that on quiet nights, you can still hear the echoes of the whispers carried on the wind as the tortured souls of the asylum reach out, desperate to be heard. It was Jenny's first night shift at Arkbridge Sanitarium, a notorious psychiatric hospital with a grim history. The old building creaked with every step she took, and the fluorescent lights flickered ominously as if warning her to leave. But Jenny needed the job, so she pushed her unease aside. Her task was simple: monitor the patients on the security cameras and make hourly rounds. The patients were mostly quiet, sedated by the heavy doses of medication. But there was one room 304, that was different. The patient inside was considered dangerous, kept in solitary confinement for years. The previous nurse had quit suddenly, leaving them. Around midnight, Jenny heard a soft knocking sound coming from the monitor showing room 304. She leaned in closer, noticing the patient, a frail man with sunken eyes, staring directly at the camera. His lips moved, as if he were whispering something, but no sound came through. Curious and a bit unnerved, Jenny decided to check on him during her rounds. As she approached room 304, the air grew colder, and she felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The door to the room was slightly ajar, though it was supposed to be locked. Suddenly, the man's voice became clear. He was repeating the same phrase over and over. "He is coming. He is coming." Before Jenny could react, the door slammed shut behind her, and the nightlight flickered off, plunging the room into darkness. She fumbled for her radio, but it was dead, just like her flashlight. The room grew colder, and she heard a low, guttural growl filled the air, and Jenny realized with horror that the man wasn't talking about someone else. He was warning her. She backed up against the wall, feeling the icy breath of something unseen on her neck. The next morning, the staff found room 304 empty. Jenny was never seen again, and the Patient S file mysteriously disappeared from the records. Arkbridge Sanitarium closed down shortly after, but those who pass by say they can still hear the faint echoes of a woman's scream coming from the abandoned building. Drive. Emily Grayson was a respected psychiatrist, known for her compassion and dedication to her patients. When she was assigned to a new position at the remote Maplewood Psychiatric Hospital, she was eager to make a difference. The hospital was old, its once grand facade now crumbling and overgrown with ivy. During her orientation, the head nurse mentioned that there was one ward that had been sealed off for years, the Forgotten Ward. It was where they had kept the most violent and disturbed patients before the wing was closed down after a series of mysterious deaths. No one spoke of it, and most of the staff pretended it didn't exist. Intrigued by the mystery, Drive, Grayson decided to investigate. Late one night, after her shift, she found a set of old keys in the archives and made her way to the locked door at the end of a forgotten hallway. The air was thick with dust, and the silence was oppressive. The door creaked open, revealing a dark, narrow corridor lined with cells. The stench of decay hit her immediately, but she pressed on, her curiosity outweighing her fear. As she walked, she noticed that the walls were covered in strange symbols, carved deep into the stone, as if by desperate hands. In the last cell, she found something that made her blood run cold. There was a bed, covered in tattered sheets, and on it lay the skeletal remains of a patient, their hands bound by rusted shackles. But that wasn't what horrified her the most. Above the bed, scrawled in blood, were the words, "He never left." Suddenly, the door to the cell slammed shut, trapping her inside. The temperature dropped, and she felt an icy breeze swirl around her. The symbols on the walls began to glow with a faint, eerie light. In the corner of the cell, a shadowy figure began to form, its eyes glowing with a malevolent red. Drive. Grayson tried to scream, but no sound came out. The figure moved closer, its form shifting and twisting, as if it were made of smoke. It whispered in a voice that echoed in her mind, "You shouldn't have come here." In a panic, she tried to escape, but the door wouldn't budge. The figure reached out, its shadowy hand passing through her chest. Drive. Grayson felt an overwhelming sense of despair, as if all the sorrow and pain of the patients who had suffered here were being poured into her soul. The next morning, the hospital staff found Drive, Grayson in the hallway, unconscious and unresponsive. She was transferred to another facility, but she never spoke again. Maplewood Psychiatric Hospital was eventually shut down, but rumors persist that the Forgotten Ward is still haunted by the spirits of the patients who were never released from there. And some say, if you listen closely at night, you can hear Drive, Grayson's voice, begging for release from the horrors she uncovered.